second assassination attempt on former President Donald J. Trump. Welcome to Riks Europe, Roan Asselman, America columnist for Doorbraak.
Yes, thank you.
So could you start off with providing a brief overview of this second assassination attempt on Donald Trump?
Yes, apparently Donald Trump isn't safe anywhere, not even at his own golf course. I think that is the very short conclusion of what happened. An would-be assassin was waiting, hiding, not far from him, while he was doing his round of golf. Apparently the assassin did not know when Trump was going to arrive. He had been hiding in or around the golf course for about 12 hours, which is, really remarkable considering the amount of patience you have to do this. But he really wanted to kill the former president, is I think what this shows. He was apparently very involved in the pro-Ukraine movement, and of course it's known that Trump is perhaps less likely to keep funding and supporting Ukraine, at least to the level that the Biden administration is doing it. But he was really all over the place when it came politically. He apparently used to support Trump, then he didn't. Then he supported Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley, both former presidential candidates, then he didn't. And now he's supporting Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. He still is. He had a bumper sticker, Harris Waltz, on his truck. So let's say he was eclectic when it came to his political views over the last 10 years.
What have been the immediate reactions to the fact that this happened again in such a short space of time?
Well, I think on the Republican side, everyone knew this was going to happen again. Once you raise the temperature high enough that the water starts boiling, it's inevitable that the water will eventually boil over, right? Now, to be clear, there's only one person who is responsible, culpable, legally at least, and that's the would-be shooter. But it is definitely true that in the United States, the rhetoric has been getting worse and worse over the last, let's say, 15 to 20 years. Donald Trump has kind of blown the lid of the niceties that sometimes covered up the general bad atmosphere of American politics. It's never been clearer that people really hate each other, especially on both ends of the political spectrum. But so on the Republican side, it was, well, yeah, of course this happened again, and it will probably happen again. There was a very funny headline, I thought, funny and sad at the same time. I think it was Time, basically saying Republicans seethe over would-be assassination, as if the story was that Republicans are angry about it and not that, the former president and presidential candidate of one of the major parties in the United States was almost assassinated. And on the Democratic side, of course, they're going to say, well, we abhor political violence, and as they should, and that's a good thing to say. The opposite would be very concerning if that's what they said. But, you can't say that and then 5 hours later say, well, yes, we abhor violence, but Donald Trump is also a threat to democracy, the rule of law, human rights, basically Hitler. Because, of course, what you're saying is, yeah, you shouldn't kill him, but wink, wink, what would you do if you saw Hitler? And everyone knows the answer to that.
In your opinion, how have the media responded to this?
Most of them responded quite well. They know that, of course, even if they may be, let's say, sympathetic to the shooter's aims, but not to his methods, they can't say that out loud. Now, there have been a few, columnists or media personalities who have let the mask slip, right? Who at the very least said that Trump was basically to blame for his own almost assassination, for his death, because he said some very unpleasant things about migrants in Springfield, Pennsylvania, Springfield, Ohio, rather. Some lies, and this is all true, but it's also not a reason to kill a political opponent. This is the fact that this needs to be repeated is concerning, and I think does say a lot about the American body politic today. But the media in general are quite good, and I watch and read many of them, unfortunately. But you could tell, especially on like the more obvious left-wing channels, MSNBC, The Atlantic, those kinds of outlets, there the level of sympathy for Trump was very minimal, and the level of, well, yes, he got almost shot, but isn't it really his fault? And honestly, isn't it really better for the country? That vibe was very much more pronounced.
We have been planning to speak for a few days now, but the plan was to postpone to see what other details came up in the investigation and so on in this. What details are there that have been significant that have come up just in the recent days?
Well, this is very tricky because details sometimes are really just only that, details. If you're on Twitter, if you're a little bit chronically online, as some people my generation are, you see a lot, right? For example, oh, well, this person was once involved, was once interviewed by a mainstream media outlet, or was once interviewed by the Democratic Party, or was once in a BlackRock commercial, those kinds of things. But those, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can tell, really are just details. I don't think there's anything nefarious going on that end. At least there has to be much more proof before I would draw that conclusion. I think the main thing about this man, and perhaps one of the more important conclusions, is that nut jobs, and this is a mean word, but that's basically what he seems to be. It's dangerous to overanalyze them. I'm sure this man, based on what I could tell, was radicalized one way or another, most likely by the left. But in the end, there's about 350 million people in the United States, and only one of them tried to take a shot. Well, two of them now. One of them succeeded, the second one tried. I would not try to overanalyze and read it too much into these people's state of mind, their ideology, which seemed to be very flexible and not really well set. I think the main story here is and remains, and indeed we waited 2 days to do this just to be sure, but I don't think anything really important came out, nothing that I can verify at least. And the main point really is that you can't give people like this an environment, an atmosphere, a temperature in which they are willing to live out their fantasies, basically. Go and really try to do something about this imminent threat to democracy that you've created, being the Democratic Party in this case. But let's be honest, Trump is not the shining example of healthy political rhetoric, right? But it's definitely worse on the Democrat side today than it is on the Republican side.
And is there any talk of how these two assassination attempts could affect his political outcome?
Honestly, and this is a little bit sad to say, it's kind of old news at this point, by which I mean he was shot once. It was also much more dramatic. He was actually hit. Second time, no shot was actually fired. The Secret Service was on time this time, which kind of makes it, yawn. People look away. Sure, he was shot, but, that's been the second time now. He can't keep drawing from the same well, which, of course, is insane. Just to be clear, political opponent of the sitting president gets shot twice, and people are like, yeah, okay, sure, but what else is new, So I don't think it will do much. I think the thing about Donald Trump is I've heard him described as a mud monster, basically saying if whatever you throw at him, it doesn't matter because he's already covered in mud. He's basically mud. If you throw more mud at him, doesn't make a difference. I think that's kind of the same thing. Everyone already has a very, very well set opinion about this man. And I don't think being shot a second time or really anything will change it. I do think when it comes to the election will be won or lost by the definition not of Donald Trump, but of Kamala Harris. Can Trump drag her down with him? Then he might win. Can she kind of stay above the fray? She'll probably win. He will win if he does the first thing. She will win if the second thing happens. And I don't think, look, polling has been rare, but I think it shows that Trump is basically stuck at like 47% in the polls, and Harris is somewhere between 46 and 51. And general common understanding of it is if Harris wins by more than 3 percentage points nationally, she's the next president. If she doesn't, Donald Trump is probably the president, considering the Electoral College, considering the system there.
Thank you so much, Roan Asselman, America columnist for Doorbraak.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching Riks Europe.